My guest this morning is the son of a minister. He was a typical teenager in school. He is one of the most successful musicians of all time. At 26, he was a self-made millionaire. He is certainly the forerunner of punk rock. At age 30 this past year, he admitted himself to a hospital for an alcohol problem, which is the subject of an upcoming album called From the Inside. He is none other than the inimitable Alice Cooper. Welcome to Good Morning America, Alice.
Hi, Rona. How are you?
Fine. Needless to say, your problem with alcohol is not something that just happened to you. It seems to be a problem that is occurring with so many young people in this country. And recently, our former First Lady, Betty Ford, announced that not only did she have a problem with alcohol, but also with medicated drugs. When did you start drinking?
I actually started when I was around 20 years old. I drank for about 10 years straight, but I mean every day, you know. I used to brag about drinking a case of beer a day and everything like that. And it was true, I did drink a case of beer. And I think when I went in the hospital, I was drinking 2 quarts of whiskey a day.
Do you have any idea why you truly started drinking?
I think a lot of it, I can't blame it on the road, totally, you know. But a lot of it does have to do with a lot of pressure on the road and being stuck in, you know, like in Wichita or someplace, you know, and you're sitting, and there's really nothing to do, you know, and you sit there and you decide, well, I'll have a drink, and then that gets to be, you get very dependent on it, you know, and when I was drinking that much, I still wasn't getting drunk. That gets scary.
When did you realize that you were getting drunk?
Well, the thing was, is I went beyond that drunk point where it wasn't even any fun anymore. I didn't like the taste of whiskey. I didn't like that, you know. I didn't like going on stage like that. I felt sloppy, you know, and everything. And then after that, the last tour was over, I said, I'm either going to die or go to a hospital. And to me, going to a hospital is like dying. I mean, it really was like one of these, you know.
Tell me about that experience recently in the hospital.
Well, the only thing that's really frightening about it is everything about a hospital I really have a phobia of. I don't like doctors, for one thing. You know?
Why?
They scare me. Doctors scare me. I don't like going into doctors' offices because that smell makes me feel like I'm going to pass out or something. And it just, you know, and the idea that you're going to be locked in, the first week you're on detox and you're locked in. And there's no two ways about it.
Do you remember the experience? What was it like when they locked the door and there you are, probably all by yourself?
Yeah. Well, I've never been in jail for anything, so I don't know. I never knew the feeling of being locked in anywhere. And when I said, well, I don't think this place is for me, state law says you're in for 72 hours, no matter what. Even if you just walked in and signed your name, you're in. And so when I realized that I was in, even for 3 days to an alcoholic, that's really hell, you know, because that means 3 days with no alcohol. And that means you can't change your mind either. And so the first 3 days is really terrifying.
Can you recall those 3 days?
Yeah, I remember sitting in one place, I think for about 20 hours and not moving. Because I just didn't want to move. I was afraid I was going to crack, you know. Not mentally, I was just afraid physically. I didn't know what was going to happen to me because I had always had alcohol to calm me down. I had always had alcohol to, you know, your body feels at ease. You know, and your body gets so accustomed to having all that sugar and everything in it that if you don't get that sugar, you start shaking. Luckily, I didn't go through that. I didn't go through that kind of DT thing because they fill you up with vitamins and they encourage you to drink ginger ale and things like that. But I didn't go through anything like Lost Weekend, you know. But it was still scary enough that I was just terrified to move.
Can you remember thinking about anything specifically during those 20 hours when you were just in a solid state of almost non-movement?
The only thing I thought about is where the nurse kept her keys. Because I was going to say, as soon as I find out where she keeps them, I'm going to make sure I get out of here, you know. But the thing is that the thing that's really good about it is that after those 3 days, or I don't know how long it would take a normal person, but after the 3 days for me, I felt, well, wow, 3 days. That's really something for me, you know. 4 days. And they have a slogan in there that says, 1 day at a time, stupid. And that means you can't think about what's going to happen tomorrow. You got to think about that 1 day that you're living without alcohol.
When you are in a hospital, do you visit with a psychiatrist?
Yeah, oh yeah, you're assigned a doctor and everything. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there is a mental problem, except that you do have an obsession for alcohol. And it's either that or dipsomania, which means you must have, you know, something there. You must have a liquid there.
Well, there are some doctors who have stated that people who crave alcohol really have some kind of a deficiency
They
in
told
their
me
body.
about that. Yeah, they told me about that. They had just had a breakthrough, yeah, medically, where they found they were doing experiments and found that there is a deficiency in a lot of people that become alcoholics. A
What-
vitamin thing, I think. I don't
Yes, a vitamin deficiency. What did the doctors tell you about yourself, or what did you learn about yourself in discussing perhaps your problem or your dependency on alcohol?
Well, it wasn't just the alcohol. It was the fact that the character, the Alice character, got a little too strong, you know. When I talk about Alice Cooper, I'm talking about the character that people associate me with the black eyes and everything. People really think that I live in a big black castle, you know, with people hanging on the walls and things like that. But since it is the character, I had to be convinced back again that, look, you were the one that created Alice. You know, Alice didn't create you. You were the one that gave Alice life, you know. And that's where my confusion, I really got confused, you know, in the process of trying to live up to that character all the time. You know.
In other words, did you want to be freaky, or did you think you had to be freaky?
I felt that I had to be performing at all times, you know. And this was something that I was wrong, you know. And when I finally realized I didn't have to be that character all the time, I mean, it was like a total burden off my back, you know. Now I can, you know.
Did you ever have any fears or any qualms about going out on stage and performing in that get-up?
No, I felt really comfortable as Alice. You get a real feeling of power when you don't look like anybody in the audience, when they come to see you and they've heard about you and they know that this show that they're going to see is really a unique presentation. Because I think that's the kind of thing that we've been based on. Our reputation has always been, wow, you're not going to believe what this show is about. You know, it's like a Broadway production, and rock audiences very rarely get to see that kind of production.
Do you like the real you?
Yeah, I do. I really do. And I found that out recently, you know, that I really do like me. And so, you know, it's a lot more fun being me. And now when I go out for, say, 10 dates or 2 weeks, I look forward to saying, well, I get to be Alice for 2 weeks, you know, on stage for that hour and a half or however long I'm going to be on.
When you created Alice, did you not like who you really were?
Well, I mean, it was average, you know. Like you even said at the beginning, that was the average kid. But I had a spark that said, yeah, but you know, you could really do something, you know, unique. I'd look at rock bands and say, gee, look at all that stage, and they're not doing anything with it. All that visual space they have up there, and they're not using it. And why shouldn't that be used? You know, the audience paid $8 to see the show, and they're just hearing music. Well, why not do the music and then give them a visual interpretation of it?
During the period when you were in the hospital, Alice, you are the son of a minister. Did at any time you turn to religion for any kind of help?
Yeah, I think I did. I found myself saying, "Get me out of this one, please," you know. And I think everybody does that to a point. If you just get me out of this one, you know, I'll be good and all that. And it sounds like a little kid's getting caught doing something, but it's a real life, you know, life and death situation when you're an alcoholic. You know that you can't go back to the thing you really depend on, is this alcohol. And then you have to depend on yourself, and you have to depend on a higher self. I think that's God, you know.
Can you remember the exact day that you decided you wanted to live as opposed to die?
Yeah, I'll tell you a story. What happened was I read that Dick Van Dyke had gone through this kind of thing. And I actually called. I had never met Dick Van Dyke, and I called Dick Van Dyke at the Carol Burnett studio. And he was in the middle of taping, and came in, you know, right to the phone and everything. And I told him what it was regarding, you know. And I said, I want to know what to do. I don't know what to do. I really can't. Nobody around me has any idea what to do because they've never been in this situation. And so I said, I understand that it's an alcoholic's responsibility to talk to another alcoholic and help him. And he told me exactly. He says, if you're going to go to a place, don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till you go right now. And I did. I packed up and left. I went to the hospital. And that's what you have to do. You have to make the decision and go.
Do you think you're cured?
Oh yeah, I can't even think about drinking. You know, if somebody, I sit around with all my friends now, and they all drink, and it doesn't bother me at all.
Do you think that if things weren't going as well as they are going now for you, that you could turn back to alcohol as a crutch?
No, I don't think so, because now it's a challenge. If something goes wrong, now for once in my life, I can take charge of the situation and say, okay, now let's see what's going on here. Before I'd say, oh, just talk to my manager, talk to this, talk to that. Now I'm sitting back and saying, okay, let's see what the problem is. I've got like a second lease on life on the thing. And to me, it's real exciting.
What will your new album be saying?
I think it's going to be more of an awareness rather than, I don't like preaching, because maybe alcohol was really bad for me and everything. I didn't take alcohol in any sort of, you know, proportion with the normal drinking person. I was way over proportion with it. So I can't preach against it, you know. But at the same time, I think that there should be an awareness with kids that it's the most available drug, and it's also one of the most addicting and the most deadly, you know. And it sneaks up on you. Well, I didn't know I was an alcoholic when I was laughing about it and drinking every night. I had no idea until I realized that I couldn't function without it.
When did you realize that you couldn't function without it?
By the middle of a tour, I realized if somebody were to take this alcohol away, I couldn't go on stage tonight.
But Alice, what about your loved ones? What about the people who are on the road with you?
Exactly.
Don't you ever listen to their advice? Don't they ever come to you and say,
Alcoholics don't.
Alice, you're an alcoholic, stop drinking, you're ruining yourself?
Alcoholics don't listen to people. Alcoholics only look for the bottle, and that's it. You know, my wife's the greatest lady in the world, and she, you know, and she would just sit there and shake her head, and she'd say, you know that's making you sick, but that doesn't mean anything to somebody that's obsessed by something, like alcohol. You just don't listen until it's proven to you, until you have to look at yourself and shake yourself and say, okay, now you got to do something, because it's either you're going to die or you're going to live. You have your choice. You know, I would have been dead now, I think, if I wouldn't have stopped drinking 7 months ago.
I'm not a psychiatrist nor a psychologist, but I'm quite sure in discussing with your own doctor whatever your problems are, did you at any time come to the realization that perhaps you could not accept your success and that you were looking for a way in which to destroy yourself in order to destroy that success, in order to make you back the so-called ordinary boy that you thought you were?
Yeah, that always comes up. In fact, the doctor I was talking to said that happens so much with entertainers, that suddenly they're extra special people. And then they start wondering, why am I extra special? Why am I sitting here in a limousine? And why are people coming and paying all their money to see me? You suddenly lose track of the fact that you worked your brains out to get to that point. And you're starting to say, yeah, but I'm just up here singing, you know, I'm not that great of a singer, and maybe my production isn't that good. And you start doubting yourself. And so, well, I'll have a drink, and then I'll feel better, and then I'll get egotistical behind it. But in the end, I mean, you're sitting back, and now I have a total view of really the reality of it, you know. I work hard, and you know, when I go on tour, I think it's as hard as anything else to do.
Can you ever remember what you were like during an alcoholic state?
Well, no, I mean, for 10 years it was pretty, I never really got drunk is the problem. I was one of those drinkers that could drink and you would never know I was drunk. You know, I could just drink all day and all night. And somebody would talk to me and I would just talk as plain as I am now, and nobody would ever know I was drunk.
You look like you're all together, and every time I have ever been with you, you've always looked in a strange way, even though you always carried a little glass, a little cup of something with you.
That's right.
You always seem to have your act totally in perspective.
Well,
was there ever a time, though, Alice, that you privately cracked up?
yeah, there was. There was an actual time where I was I was really mad at myself, for one thing, because of the alcohol. And I was mad because I didn't have enough guts to stop it. And, I mean, you just really, who are you going to have to yell at? You know, I was logical enough not to yell at anybody around me. So what I did was I wouldn't talk to anybody. I just would not talk to anybody.
Did you cry?
Yeah, oh yeah, I did a lot of crying. And which is something I'd never done before. For the first time, and I think in 25 years, since I was 5 years old, I cried. And it amazed me. I said, well, actually, this feels good. Crying, for one thing, does, you know. But then when I realized why I was crying, because I was feeling sorry for myself. You know, that's just something that sticks in your throat when you think about feeling sorry for yourself. I hate that, you know.
At age 30, being the success that you are, can you go back to your folks and discuss with them your problems?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm at the point of, I discuss it with all the time, because I think it's a real reality, and it's something that this is not 1940 or 1950. This is something that goes on every day, this problem, the alcohol problem. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a disease, you know.
You say you don't want to be preachy, but needless to say, you have millions upon millions of young people who adore you.
Yeah.
Many of those people drink. Is there any
lot.
advice you would give them?
Yeah, I would say don't follow my example when it comes to the drinking thing, because I thought it was real innocent for a long time. And it was real cool, and Alice always had the can of beer and everything, and that was fine, you know, because like you said, the punk image, and I was a punk. And Alice still is a punk on stage, because that's how Alice is. But believe me, I mean, you can be an alcoholic having 2 beers. You never know if you're an alcoholic until it happens.